Wow, I really seem to strike a nerve on my post, what I posted last night about a Marxist professor had written an article in the Washington Post that said the repeal of Obamacare would kill 43,000 Americans annually. And all these people writing back in, stay off politics, you're like Alex Jones. And I'm like, oh my, I laugh. It's funny to me because I sit there thinking, I've done a survey. I commissioned a survey from Google, which is actually pretty easy to do. I surveyed 1,500 people, and I actually did a survey on my own channel subscribers as well. I said, what do you think will be the biggest expense you have in retirement? And by far and away, healthcare was number one. Nothing came close. Nothing came close. By far and away, healthcare was number one. On top of that, I didn't do the survey here, but you read medical bankruptcies are caused by healthcare. You read this all the time, 50%, 60%, you name it. And that's basically become so ingrained into society that to even challenge that makes you an Alex Jones conspiracy theorist. It's crazy to me. However, it's not true. There's no evidence of that at all. Elizabeth Warren and this Marxist professor, I can't remember, I think he was with, I guess he does lecturing at Harvard, but he also some professor someplace. And someone else have done, their study was completely debunked. And this is what propelled Elizabeth Warren to national prominence. Is her fake study on healthcare causing bankruptcies. And it's just simply not true. It's just not. And yet to state that makes me an Alex Jones person, a conspiracy theorist, which is just ironic to me. And the funny thing is people say, stay out of politics, you fool. But yet it's ingrained in retirement planning because people are nervous about retirement planning and they're nervous about expenditures on healthcare because of articles like we see all the time that say you're going to go bankrupt because of medical care. The things are ingrained at the hip. You cannot separate the two. If you're going to talk about retirement planning and not going to talk about the reality of healthcare, you simply cannot talk about retirement planning because the biggest fear people have is healthcare. And the reason for that is because the political shenanigans that these people have used for the since what was the guy's name? Lowell Weicker in Connecticut won a seat in 1990. I can't remember if he beat the incumbent Republican or if it's an open seat, but Connecticut was typically a Republican state. And Lowell Weicker, as a Democrat, won the seat, and that would propel Bill Clinton to run on health care for his 1992 campaign. And ever since then, we've been told that health care is our biggest expense. It's not. There's not. There's no evidence of this. None. Doesn't make me an Alex Jones conspiracyist to say I challenge you to provide the evidence. And if the evidence is based on Elizabeth Warren and I forgot the guy's name, Himmelstein or something like that, and Steffi, I forgot her name. That's the evidence has been debunked, horribly debunked. There's no credibility to this at all. Does that mean some people don't file bankruptcies because of healthcare? No, no one's saying that. No one is saying that. But we're not, the idea that the majority of bankruptcies are caused by healthcare is simply not true. It's fanciful. And it's all done to advance a political agenda. And not to be able to see that is to either want to, I don't know what it is to remain blissfully ignorant, I guess. I literally don't understand it. I mean, I get the politics of it. People want single payer. I get that. And they're going to do whatever they can to advance single payer. And the way they do is scaring people. But to sit there and say that is conspiracies is just it's nuts. Now, again, some people do file bankruptcies for medical care. That's exactly right. The interesting thing is, though, how many people file bankruptcies because of mortgage payments? How come that's never part of it? How many people file bankruptcies because of credit card payments? How many people would file bankruptcies because of student loans, but they can't write those off in bankruptcy, so they're still going to file bankruptcy to get rid of their mortgage, they probably don't even have a mortgage, their credit card, their car payments, because student loans are killing them, so they're going to wipe those things off. But how come we never hear about that? How come it's always healthcare? And how come the fear mongers always cite healthcare statistics as if more than half American people, or another one I've quoted is that the middle class is being decimated by healthcare bankruptcies. But you never hear the middle class is being decimated by car loans. You never hear the middle class is being decimated by mortgages they can't afford. It's all healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. And the reason for that is because of Elizabeth Warren and other people from the left who advocate single payer. That's why. Look, man, you can unsubscribe, do whatever you got to do. I don't care. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend this doesn't exist. It does. And for me to write a book titled "You Can Retire on Social Security," the premise of the book is to get rid of the fear mongering that says you need $8,000 million. From Susie Ormans, from Dave Ramsey, I don't care where it comes. I don't care. But part of that fear mongering is from healthcare costs. There's just no evidence that the vast majority of us are going to go bankrupt because of healthcare costs. The evidence does not exist. It doesn't. Now, you could cite a piece of, like I said, with Elizabeth Warren or others that state that. In fact, I was looking at an article that CNBC just posted back in February, and you can't see the research on the study. You got to pay for it. Well, I'm not paying for it. And so how do I know it's legit? I don't know. But I do know what other people have challenged on these studies that show you that they're simply wrong. So I have to assume, because I can't see the actual, it's kind of like the polls. Remember they had the polls last year or 2 years, 2016, that had Hillary Clinton up by 12%. I mean, that's 3 weeks before the election. Only a fool would have thought that was legitimate. And the reason we knew that is because even Obama, when his best year, he only won 53-48, 53-47, or that's like 52.6, 47.4, or something like that. So even in his best year, he only won by 5%, which is a landslide. But when they had Hillary up by 12, you knew it's crazy. You just knew it. And if you looked at the underlying mechanism, how they derived those polls, you could see it. It didn't take a rocket science to realize that these polls are fraudulent. They were, because the basis of how they're conducting the polls. And similar to this stuff right here, you got to look at the underlying issue to see how they're calculating the results. And if you can't look at the underlying issue, then I simply, because what I know in my experience with the medical reasoning studies of Elizabeth Warren and said Marxist professors on top of all the other advocates pushing an agenda of single payer, I don't trust them as far as I can kick them. I don't. And especially when they hide the data from me where I can't see it. And we have more. Just look at Hillary Clinton. I'll never forget an NBC poll 3 weeks before the election had Hillary Clinton up by 12. And all the prognosticators are saying this is a done deal. I said, this is crazy. I mean, she might win by 5, but she's not going to win by more than Obama did, because Obama was liked. Hillary wasn't that liked, because it just didn't make sense. Even from someone who leans to the right libertarian, as I do, I said, look, I'm going to challenge this, but even if Trump is hated, Hillary is not more loved than Obama was. And Obama had a significant base that Hillary did not have. And so it just didn't make sense. And then you start calculating and said, okay. And then you saw what happened. In fact, you can ask my friends at USA and my work there. I said, Trump's going to win this, because we saw the polls. The polls, if you looked at the research on them, you're like, no, Trump's going to win. He's going to win going away. And he did. Because remember, it's an electoral college. It's not popular vote. He just had to win the electoral college, and he did. He won in a landslide in that regard. You just had to look at the polls and recognize how they were ascertaining their results was wrong. And then you just look, same thing when it comes to healthcare. How are people going bankrupt? And then my man CB posted a thing that was pretty interesting. He was talking to a bankruptcy attorney who said when he does bankruptcies, he puts everything. He just takes everything and puts it into the issue of medical, because medical has a lot more sympathy with judges than just spending. In fact, so what happened was Gail Harriet did a study from 2005, which I've linked to before, that showed you there's 16 different issues, 16. As long as one of those issues checked for filing bankruptcy, 16 different, one was smoking dope, being a gambling addict, being a drunk, you name it. As long as you could check all 16, but as long as one said medical, it all flowed into the medical bankruptcy. It's nuts. And so you say, okay, well, I have a gambling problem, which has caused me to lose my job, which has caused me to go bankruptcy. And on top of that, because gambling is considered a medical issue, that flows into medical bankruptcies. It's crazy. So I'm not going to shut up on this, because it's important to me. And it should be important to you if you want the reality. If you don't want reality, then don't subscribe. I'm cool with that. Absolutely. But I'm not going to sit there and be called an Alex Jones conspiracy theorist. It's stupid. It's just dumb. I am going to sit there and bring you the truth, though. The truth, as I can see it, and I'm willing to be engaged if the otherwise, is that right now, as we say here today, medical bankruptcies, Medical costs do not bankrupt more than 50% of the people who file bankruptcy. It's just not true. And you can argue that. That's fine. Bring the freaking studies, so let's see it. I'm open to seeing that stuff. But you can't sit there and say you're an idiot. I mean, you can. I don't. You can. Look, I don't care. Do whatever you got to do. If that's what makes you feel good, I don't care. But I'm here for it to show to people on the middle class, the lower scale of income, that they can retire from the crappy old job without fear, because everything they've been told in the past has been wrong, and that includes medical bankruptcies as well, on top of the need to have $8 million like Susie Ormans and Dave Ramsey say, or whatever these other people are. You can retire on Social Security. I will spout that until I'm dead or I'm proven otherwise. And the reason I know that, it all goes back. The median household income in the U.S. today is $60,000 a year. That's the median household income. 50% make more, 50% make less. Because that is the median, that's what we use to derive some basic numbers of Social Security using the BLS Consumer Expenditure Survey, the HRS, the Health and Retirement Study from the University of Michigan, looking at the data. Can we retire on Social Security alone? And the answer is unequivocally yes. But people get scared because they're told you can't. Medical is going to kill you, as I did in my study from Google. And the facts are, I'm going to challenge that until the good Lord takes me home. I'm sorry. That's where I'm going to be. And if you find that to be Alex Jones, I don't have anything. I've got nothing to say. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Hang in there. If you guys are along for the ride, I'm I love it, man. What we know is, if you're just milk toast, you aren't going to tick people off. And if you don't tick people off, you're not doing a good job. And ticking people off means you got to take a stand on something. And I take a stand on freedom, and I take a stand on not living in fear in the U.S. of A. Because, as always, if you are in fear in the U.S. of A., something's gone drastically wrong for you, my friends. We are the most affluent, the most abundant society the world has ever seen. And not to see that, I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry for you, because it's wonderful. U.S. of A. is wonderful. There's never been a better society than we have right here. We're living it now, and it should be glorified. And we should look at it and say, I'm grateful to be here, and I'm not going to live in fear. All right, we'll see you next time.